This video is about unlocking the strategic secrets of World War II. Subscribe for more. The cold, crisp air of December 1944 hung heavy over the Ardennes forest. The quiet was deceptive, the calm before an impending storm that would soon engulf Europe in chaos. Major Richard Thompson, a seasoned officer of the United States Army, crouched behind a snow-covered log, his breath visible in the frigid air. He scanned the dense green pines, gripping his Montgarand rifle tightly, instinctively aware that every second could mean the difference between life and death. Thompson had fought valiantly in the European theatre, but this latest offensive had taken him to the heart of one of the most towering moments in history, the Battle of the Bulge. With the German forces regrouping under the command of Field Marshal Georg von Rundstedt, the Allies faced an unexpected onslaught. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in a deceptive purity that belied the conflict raging beneath. Beside him, Sergeant Frank Malone peered through the scope of his rifle, eyes narrowed, seeking any sign of movement. The tension thickened as they awaited orders. Thompson could sense the fear creeping into his men, each man questioning whether they would see another day. They had heard rumors of a secret German weapon, a new technology that could turn the tide of the war. But such whispers were usually vague, shrouded in uncertainty. "Major, you think the rumors are true?" Malone asked, breaking the silence that encased them. "About the new weapon?" Thompson shrugged, his brow furrowed. "All I know is we need to be ready for anything. The Germans have been throwing everything at us." As if on cue, the distant thunder of artillery echoed through the air, shaking the ground beneath them. Explosions lit up the horizon, and Thompson motioned his men to take cover. This was no ordinary battle. This was a desperate gamble, the Germans' last chance to seize control of the war. Meanwhile, in a distant bunker deep in the heart of Germany, General Wilhelm Keitel received intelligence that unnerved him. The Allies were closing in on their secret operations, and the new weapon, the V-2 rocket, a terrifying advancement in warfare, was ready for deployment. The echoes of impending doom haunted his thoughts. Would they be able to strike first? Would the V-2 be the key to sealing their victory, or would it be their final blunder? Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean, the United States was bracing itself for the fallout of the conflict. In Washington, President Franklin D. Roosevelt's cabinet was engaged in a fierce debate. The war had taken a toll on both soldiers and civilians, and the pressure to deliver a decisive blow against the Axis powers weighed heavily on Roosevelt. Yet there was another conflict brewing, one that would be fought long after the guns of Europe fell silent. Amid the war rooms filled with maps and strategy, Colonel David Jacobson stood, a young intelligence officer tasked with decrypting enemy communications. He had recently uncovered coded messages hinting at a secret operation involving the German military. The implication sent shivers down his spine. This was not just about winning the war, it was about understanding what lay ahead for Europe and the world. "Colonel, we need to act swiftly," an aide urged. "If the Germans deploy their secret weapon, it could change everything." Jacobson nodded, his mind racing. The war had been a complex web of alliances and betrayals, and now the fate of millions hung in the balance. They needed to gather intelligence, send spies into enemy territory. But how? The stakes were too high to risk lives recklessly. Back in the Ardennes, Thompson's unit prepared to advance. The mission was clear: gather intelligence on the enemy's movements and, if possible, disrupt their operations. With the assignment weighing on him, Thompson felt a sense of responsibility for his men. They were tired, battle-worn, and the bitter cold was gnawing at their morale. "Listen up, men," he began, his voice steady even as adrenaline surged through him. "We be going behind enemy lines. Our objective is to gather intel on their operations in this area. We need to find out what they're replanning. Stay sharp, stay alive." The men nodded, determination etched on their faces. They were soldiers, bound by duty and the spirit of camaraderie. They moved forward, through the snow-laden trees, every sound amplified in the stillness. The weight of history pressed down on them as they navigated the treacherous terrain. In the heart of Berlin, Keitel's anxiety intensified. The Allies were relentless, and the clock was ticking. He gathered his senior officers, their faces grim and determined. They had one shot to utilize the V-2 rocket to strike at the heart of the American forces. "Gentlemen, we have a chance to cripple the Allies," Keitel declared, his voice commanding attention. "If executed perfectly, it will buy us time and disrupt their plans. We cannot afford failure." The officers exchanged glances, weighing the risks. They understood that failure could signify the end for the Third Reich, but the stakes were impossibly high, and the pressure to succeed was palpable. As Thompson's squad advanced deeper into enemy territory, they stumbled upon a hidden encampment. The faint glow of lanterns flickered through the trees. The men moved stealthily, adrenaline coursing through their veins, the thrill of discovery mingling with the terror of being caught. "Major, look," Malone whispered, pointing to the figures huddled around a makeshift table. Thompson leaned closer, straining to hear the German officer's conversation. They spoke of launches, of a weapon that could strike with unparalleled precision, and of desperate measures needed to halt the Allies' advance. Thompson's breath quickened. This was the information they needed. Suddenly, a rustle came from behind them. Thompson turned, heart racing, and saw a sentry approaching. In an instant, he raised his rifle, ready to act. But the sentry fell, a silent shadow in the night. Malone had acted without hesitation. "Let us move," Thompson urged, adrenaline surging. They needed to report this discovery, but first, they had to escape. Meanwhile, Jacobson was piecing together the codes, connecting the dots of the German operations. The discovery of the V-2 rocket was significant, but what lay beneath the surface was even more troubling. There were whispers of secret alliances forming, a coalition that included covert support from unexpected sources. Jacobson's fingers trembled as he traced the lines of communication. Could this be the key to unlocking the true nature of the conflict, an alliance that would shape the future of not just Europe, but the world? With urgency, he summoned his superiors, ready to unveil the formidable data he had collected. Back in the Ardennes, Thompson and his men navigated through the treacherous terrain, heartbeats matching the rhythmic crunch of snow beneath their boots. They had to get back before the Germans realized their secrets were at risk. As they stumbled across the battlefield, explosions erupted nearby. The conflict was escalating, and the urgency to report their findings intensified. But in the chaos, a larger mystery loomed, a puzzle that would reveal itself in time. With the night pressing in around them, they pushed forward, unaware that they were mere steps away from altering the course of history. It was only a matter of time before the full force of the German war machine would be unleashed. And in the shadows, a spy lingered, waiting for the right moment to change the game entirely, a single thread in the larger tapestry of war. Thompson led his squad through the forest, the trees looming like sentinels in the darkness. The echoes of distant gunfire punctuated the night, a reminder that the war was far from over. The tension within the group was palpable. Every shadow threatened to harbor an enemy, every whisper of wind felt like a warning. They had vital intelligence in hand, but the journey back to safety was fraught with peril. "Stay low and move quickly," he instructed, his voice barely above a whisper. Malone and the others nodded, instinctively moving closer together, a protective formation against the dangers lurking in the dark. They could hear the German encampment's forces fading behind them, but they knew the threat would not be far behind. Suddenly, the quiet shattered as a series of thunderous explosions rocked the ground. Flashes of light illuminated the trees, and the air was filled with a cacophony of shouts. The Germans had begun their offensive, and chaos erupted around them. Thompson's heart raced. They were caught between two fires, their own forces engaged in brutal combat, and the ever-looming specter of the German counterattack. "Major," Malone shouted, pointing ahead. "We need to move right. The LL flank us. If we don't, get out of here." With no time to lose, Thompson led his men off the path, diving into a dense thicket where the snow was untouched. They huddled together, waiting for the storm of war to pass. In the distance, Thompson could see the silhouettes of German soldiers advancing, their figures illuminated by the sporadic bursts of artillery. The V-2 rockets were more than just a threat, they were a symbol of desperation, a last-ditch effort by a failing regime. "Listen," Thompson said, his voice low but urgent. "We need to get this intel back. If the Germans have already deployed the V-2, we need to know where they're retargeting." The men nodded, their resolve hardening. As they prepared to move again, a sudden shout rang out, echoing through the trees. A German patrol had spotted them. The squad braced for impact as the sound of boots stomping through the snow grew louder. "Get ready," Thompson hissed, gripping his rifle tighter. "We outnumber, but we can't let them take us alive." The Germans approached, their voices hushed, barking orders that shattered the night. Thompson motioned for his men to spread out, ready to engage. The dim light of their flashlights flickered like fireflies, and as the patrol turned a corner, the Americans sprang into action. Gunfire erupted, the sharp crack of Thompson's rifle blending with the urgent shouts of the enemy. Time slowed as adrenaline surged through his veins. He fired, hitting the first soldier squarely in the chest. The man fell without a sound, but the attack only heightened the Germans' resolve. Bullets whizzed past, and Thompson ducked low, calling to his men to regroup. "Fall back." We can hold this position," Malone yelled, firing blindly at their pursuers. They retreated farther into the forest, weaving between trees while bullets splintered back around them. The chaos of the battle became all-consuming, and the cold air buzzed with electricity. Thompson could hardly keep track of time, the urgency of the moment eclipsing all else. They had to escape. They had to survive. But as they moved deeper into the woods, the sound of the battle faded. They emerged into a clearing, breathless and disoriented, the snow glowing in the moonlight. Thompson took a moment to catch his breath, scanning for any signs of pursuit. "Major, I think we lost them," Malone said, panting. "But we can stay here, we're right." "We need to reach the lines before dawn," Thompson said, glancing toward the horizon. "We're too exposed out here." They pressed on, hearts pounding in unison, the urgency of their mission propelling them forward. However, little did they know that their skirmish had not gone unnoticed. Hidden behind a nearby tree, a figure observed them intently. A spy, sent to gather intelligence for the German High Command, had witnessed the entire confrontation and now faced a critical decision: report back or act. Meanwhile, in Berlin, General Cadel gathered with his officers to finalize the details of the V-2 launch. The air was thick with tension, and the stakes had never been higher. "Men," Cadel began, his voice commanding, "we stand at a pivotal moment. We have a chance to demonstrate our might. The Americans are vulnerable, and if we can strike with the V-2s, we may yet shift the tide of this war." He gestured toward a map on the wall, marked with potential targets. The officers around him exchanged glances, each weighing the implications of such an attack. They understood the risks, but in this moment of desperation, it felt like the only option left. "Deploying the V-2s will diminish our remaining forces, but it could break the American spirit. We cannot afford to hesitate," one officer argued, his face set in grim determination. The tension was palpable as they debated. Would they gamble everything on an untested weapon, or would they hold back and fortify their defenses? Hitler's brow furrowed, the burden of command heavy on his shoulders. He had seen too many losses, and the desperate need to reclaim the narrative of the war stung deep in his gut. Back in the Ardennes, Thompson's squad trudged through the snow. Exhaustion weighed on them, but the thought of the information they carried fueled their resolve. They needed to reach the Allied lines to ensure that the secrets of the German plans did not remain buried in frozen ground. "Major, we should consider splitting up," Malone suggested, looking to the shadows around them. "It might be safer if we approach the lines at different points. We can rendezvous later." Thompson considered the suggestion, knowing the inherent risks. "It is a gamble, but it may be our best option. We'll reconvene at the old barn near the river. Stay alert and don't take unnecessary risks." As they split up, Thompson felt a pang of anxiety. Each man would face the dangers of the night alone, but he knew it was necessary. Every second counted, and they had to ensure that the Allies were prepared for the impending threat. As Thompson navigated the familiar terrain, he could sense the gravity of what lay ahead. He was unaware of the shadow that followed him, the spy who had made the fateful choice to track him. The figure had slipped away, blending into the darkness, intent on uncovering the truth behind the Americans' knowledge of the V-2s. In Washington, Jacobson's office buzzed with urgency. His latest findings had uncovered something deeper connection between the German operations and an odd alliance forming with a foreign nation. Tensions flared as he presented his information to the cabinet, revealing the intricate web of deceit that surrounded them. "This could change everything," Jacobson asserted, his voice steady despite the weight of the implications. "We must act, or we risk losing the upper hand." As the cabinet debated their next move, Jacobson couldn't shake the feeling that the war was shifting in unprecedented ways. The shadow of the V-2 loomed heavily over the future of Europe, and the alliances forged in the crucible of war would have consequences that reached far beyond the battlefield. Back in the forest, Thompson caught sight of a familiar outline, the old barn he had once used as a temporary shelter during earlier skirmishes. Relief washed over him, but just as he approached, a loud crack echoed through the air. It was followed by an explosion that lit up the dark sky, sending shockwaves through the ground. The V-2 had been launched. In that moment, everything changed. As the light faded, Thompson realized they were no longer just soldiers in a battle. They were pieces on a chessboard, one that was being manipulated by unseen forces. The stakes had risen, and the war was entering a new, deadly phase. With the fate of millions hanging in the balance, Thompson knew that their actions in the coming hours could alter the course of history forever. And in the distance, the sound of the approaching enemy grew louder, a reminder that the fight for Europe and the world was far from over. The next chapter loomed ahead, fraught with peril and the potential for unimaginable consequence. The explosion reverberated through the air, shaking the ground beneath Major Thompson's feet. He staggered back, the shockwave sending a spray of snow into the air. For a brief moment, the world around him faded into a blur of sand and light. The reality of the situation crashed over him like a wave. The V-2 had been launched, and the war was entering a new phase of chaos. Major, Malone shouted, breaking through the fog of his thoughts. We need to move. We can't stay here. Thompson nodded, forcing himself to focus. Right, we regroup with the others now. He turned and sprinted toward the barn, adrenaline coursing through him. The ramifications of the V-2 launch lingered heavily in the air, a harbinger of the destruction to come. As they dashed through the forest, Thompson's mind raced. The V-2 was not just a weapon, it was a statement of desperation, a last-ditch effort by the Germans to break the resolve of the Allies. The information he had gathered about its deployment could shift the entire landscape of the war. If they could intercept the next launches, perhaps they could mitigate the damage, or better yet, turn it against the Germans. But first, they had to evade the enemy patrols that were surely on high alert after the launch. Thompson and Malone zigzagged through the trees, using the underbrush for cover. The cold air stung his lungs, but the urgency of their mission stoked the fire in his chest. A crunch of snow behind them sent Thompson spinning around, rifle raised. "It's just us," the familiar voice called out. It was Corporal John Harris, one of the younger soldiers from their unit, breathing heavily as he emerged from the shadows. "Get low," Thompson commanded as they ducked behind a large tree. The sound of German voices drifted through the air, and Thompson's heart raced anew. They were close, and their proximity could cost them everything. Harris, wide-eyed with fear, whispered, "What do we do now?" "We need to get to the barn, regroup, and plan our next move," Thompson replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We have vital information about the V-2s that could change everything. We can't let it slip through our fingers." As the squad moved cautiously toward the barn, Thompson's thoughts turned to General Catel and his officers in Berlin. They must have realized by now the threat posed by the small American unit, especially after the intelligence they had gathered on the V-2 operations. The Germans had a tight grip on their military secrets, and the loss of even a sliver of that information could prove catastrophic for their plans. The barn loomed ahead, its silhouette dark against the moonlit sky. Thompson quickened his pace, each step bringing him closer to safety. They needed to formulate a strategy, one that could not only safeguard their own lives, but also protect countless others from the impending fury of the V-2 strikes. With the enemy patrolling the woods, they were walking a tightrope between life and death. Once inside the barn, Thompson quickly surveyed the space. The scent of hay mixed with the chill of the winter night, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The barn was an old structure, but it offered shelter from the elements and, for the moment, from their pursuers. "Everyone, stay alert," Thompson instructed as he motioned for Malone to take the first watch. Malone nodded, positioning himself near a window to keep watch while Thompson huddled with Harris and the others. "What is our plan, Major?" Harris asked, a tremor in his voice. "We need to find out where they're retargeting and relay that back to HQ," Thompson replied, knowing full well that time was slipping away. "If we can intercept the launch schedules, we might still have a chance to thwart their plans." Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps disrupted their conversation. Thompson's heart raced, and he motioned for silence. The barn door creaked as a shadow fell across the threshold. Thompson's instincts kicked in. They were not alone. In an instant, he raised his rifle, prepared to confront whatever danger had entered. But as the figure stepped into the faint light, recognition washed over him. It was Private Laura Sanchez, a member of the intelligence unit, her eyes wide with urgency. "Thank God I found you," she exclaimed, barely catching her breath. "I have critical information. The Germans have begun deploying the V-2s towards the front lines, specifically targeting your area." "Damn it," Thompson cursed under his breath. "We need to relay that back to command. They must be warned." Sanchez nodded, her expression serious. "I intercepted a message that indicates a second wave of launches is planned for dawn. We have to act fast, or the damage will be catastrophic." Thompson's mind raced as he calculated their options. "If we can get this intel back to HQ, it could save countless lives," he said, looking around at his men who were now gathered closely, listening intently. "Laura, you take the back route to the nearest Allied line. You can be our eyes to command." "Then what about you?" Sanchez asked, concern etched in her features. "I'll lead the rest of the squad to find a way to disrupt the launch sites," Thompson replied, steeling himself for the risks ahead. "We're not letting the Germans unleash their weapons without a fight. Major, that's insane. We're outnumbered." Malone protested, but Thompson's resolve was unyielding. "They can launch those V-2s if we take out their operations. That's our best shot," Thompson insisted. "All right, I am in," Malone relented, glancing at the others, who nodded in agreement. "Then we move out in 10, Thompson ordered, his voice unwavering. "We can waste a moment." As they prepared to leave, Thompson couldn't shake the feeling that time was against them. The echoes of the battlefield reverberated in his mind, and the stakes had never felt higher. Lives hung in the balance, and the shadow of the V-2 loomed larger than ever before. Outside the barn, the cold air bit at the skin as they stepped into the night. Thompson turned to Sanchez, who was ready to head off in a different direction. He urged, concern for her safety evident. "I will," she promised, determination shining in her eyes. "Good luck, we'll all meet at the rendezvous point if we make it back," Thompson said, and with a final nod, Sanchez disappeared into the darkness. With renewed purpose, Thompson led his squad deeper into the forest, knowing that every moment counted. The path ahead was treacherous, and the threat of German patrols hung over them like a dark cloud. The urgency of their mission fueled their movements, each soldier acutely aware of the gravity of their situation. As they navigated toward the German launch sites, Thompson contemplated not only the fate of the war, but also the alliances forming amidst chaos. He thought of Colonel Jacobson back in Washington, piecing together the enigma of the V-2s and the potential foreign support bolstering the German war machine. The essence of warfare was shifting before his eyes, and the conflicts of the past were giving way to new threats that would ripple through history. Suddenly, the sound of voices broke through the stillness, causing Thompson to halt in his tracks. He raised a hand for silence, and his heart pounded in his chest as they crouched low behind a mound of snow. The silhouettes of German soldiers flickered in the moonlight ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees. Thompson's breath quickened. They were dangerously close to the launch area. He motioned for his squad to spread out quietly, forming a perimeter. The Germans were unaware of the impending storm brewing just outside their lines. "On my mark," Thompson whispered, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "We'll strike hard and fast." But before he could finish, a piercing alarm rang out, shattering the night. Germans were on high alert, and the curtain of war was rising once more. "We've been made," Malone shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Thompson commanded, but it was too late. The chase was on, and they would either emerge victorious or become another forgotten footnote in the annals of history. As the Germans mobilized, Thompson's squad sprinted away, hearts racing. The outcome of this encounter would not just determine their fates, but could potentially alter the course of the war itself. The tension in the air thickened, and in that very moment, the stakes had never been higher. With the sound of menacing shouts behind them and the certainty of conflict ahead, Thompson and his squad plunged into the night, unaware that the threads of fate were weaving a narrative that would echo through generations to come. And just as the fight for survival ignited once more, the greatest secrets of the war were about to be unveiled as they raced against time, determined to reveal the truth beneath the ashes of conflict. The final clash was looming on the horizon, a battle that would change everything. The alarm echoed ominously through the night, sending chills down Major Thompson's spine. The Germans had been alerted, and panic was palpable in the cold air. Without hesitation, he rallied his squad, urgency overriding the fear swelling inside him. Thompson led the way, ducking low and sprinting through the trees, his heart pounding in his chest. Malone, Harris, and the others followed closely, their breaths visible in the freezing night. The sounds of German soldiers converging behind them fueled their adrenaline, transforming fear into unyielding determination. Forest became a blur as they navigated the tangled underbrush, the crunch of snow beneath their boots mingling with the shouts of their pursuers. "We need to find higher ground," Thompson shouted over the din, hoping to gain a tactical advantage. "If we can spot their movements, we can plan our next move." They veered toward a nearby ridge, hoping the elevation would give them a glimpse of the enemy's position. Thompson's instincts kicked in as he ascended the incline, his mind racing with thoughts of the V-2 launches. He focused on the mission, every moment mattered. If they could locate the launch sites, they might still disrupt the German plans. As they reached the top, they crouched behind a cluster of trees, scanning the horizon. The dim glow of campfires flickered in the distance, revealing a makeshift German encampment. Thompson's breath caught in his throat as he spotted the launch pads, the towering structures looming ominously against the backdrop of the night sky. There they are, Thompson breathed, pointing toward the launch sites. We have to take them out before the rockets can be deployed. If we wait too long, we'll lose our chance. Malone nodded, his expression a mix of fear and resolve. So, what is the plan, Major? We still outnumbered even if we strike fast. But we can create a diversion, Thompson replied, formulating a strategy on the fly. If we split into two teams, one to engage the camp and draw their attention, while the other takes out the launch pads, we might stand a chance. Harris's eyes widened. What if one team gets caught? Risky is the only way we'll win this war, Thompson insisted, steely determination lining his voice. We don't have the luxury of time. We must act now. With a heavy silence settling over the squad, they exchanged glances, the weight of their decision binding them together. Each man knew the stakes. If they failed, the V-2s would rain destruction down on the front lines, jeopardizing countless lives. All right, I am in, Malone said, a fierce glint igniting in his eyes. Let us do this. Okay, listen up, but Thompson said, quickly outlining the plan. Malone, Harris, and I will create the distraction. The rest of you will slip around the back and disable the launch pads. We rendezvous at the old barn once it is done. As they prepared to move, Thompson felt the weight of leadership pressing heavily on his shoulders. Each man was risking everything, trusting him to lead them into battle. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, reminding himself of the larger mission at hand. They weren't just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for the future of Europe. With a nod of solidarity, the squad split into two teams, hearts pounding as they descended from the ridge and moved toward the encampment. Thompson's pulse raced as they advanced, the dense trees offering fleeting glimpses of the Germans below. As they neared the camp, the hum of conversations reached their ears, a false sense of security enveloping the soldiers gathered around the fires. Thompson hissed, and they rushed forward, creating chaos as they erupted into the camp. Gunfire erupted, and the Germans scrambled in confusion, caught off guard by this sudden assault. Thompson fired at the nearest soldier, his instincts honed by months of conflict. The return fire was swift, bullets whizzing past them. Malone and Harris followed suit, each soldier acutely aware of the stakes, knowing that their actions could determine the fate of the war. Keep pushing, Thompson shouted, adrenaline surging as he ducked behind a crate. The Germans, startled but quick to react, organized themselves, shouting orders and firing back. Through the chaos, Thompson caught sight of the launch pads in the distance, knowing the second team needed to strike. We've recreated the diversion, he yelled to Malone and Harris. Get to the launch site, let us move, Malone shouted, rallying the others to follow him. They darted toward the rear of the encampment, weaving through the chaos of gunfire and explosions. As they neared the launch pads, Thompson could hear the frantic shouts of the Germans, their confusion a vital window of opportunity. They had to find a way to disable the rockets before they could launch. Malone and Harris reached the base of the launch pad, their breath heavy. Now what? Harris asked, his eyes darting around for any sign of support. Look for any controls or wires. Malone ordered, scanning the area. Meanwhile, in the German camp, Thompson continued to battle, firing at soldiers who tried to regain control of the situation. The gunfire was relentless, but he pushed through, determined to hold the line as his comrades worked toward their goal. Suddenly, the sound of explosions echoed through the night, a series of fiery blasts erupting from the launch site. Thompson's heart raced as he realized they had successfully disrupted the rocket operations. He shouted, fighting back the waves of elation and urgency. But the victory was fleeting. The Germans, roused by the explosions, began to turn their attention back to Thompson's position. Fall back. We need to get to the rendezvous point, he called out, signaling to his squad to retreat. The group moved quickly, the adrenaline fueling their escape as they raced toward the safety of the woods. Behind them, the German camp erupted in chaos, soldiers scrambling to regain control after the unexpected onslaught. Get to the barn, Thompson urged, leading the way. As they navigated the dense forest, the sounds of pursuing soldiers faded into the distance. But the threat was far from over. They needed to reach Allied lines and report their findings. Emerging from the trees, they finally spotted the old barn ahead, a beacon of hope in the darkness. As they reached the door, Thompson paused to catch his breath, glancing back to ensure they weren't being followed. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but filled with a sense of triumph. We did it, Thompson said, a hint of disbelief lacing his voice. We've disrupted their operations. The V-truce will be granted for now." The Malone and Harris nodded, their expressions a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "But what now?" Malone asked, still panting from the exertion. "Now we report back to command," Thompson replied, determination etched into his features. "We need to make sure they understand the significance of what we've uncovered." As they regrouped, Thompson felt the enormity of their actions. They had risked everything, diving headfirst into chaos to thwart potential disaster. The war was far from over, but this skirmish had shifted the tide, even if only temporarily. Outside, the night began to lighten as dawn approached, the first hints of sunrise breaking over the horizon. It was a stark reminder of the battles yet to come and the uncertainty that lay ahead. But for now, in that old barn, they had survived, and they had secured a vital piece of intelligence that could save lives. Thompson looked at his squad, each man exhausted but resolute. They had fought not just for their own survival, but for the freedom of countless others. As they prepared to report back to headquarters, the reality of their mission sank in. The war was a complex tapestry of alliances and betrayals, but amidst the chaos, they had forged their own path, determined to create a better future. Major Richard Thompson knew that history would remember this moment, the sacrifices made, the battles fought, and the secrets uncovered. And as they set out toward the Allied lines, he could feel the weight of their actions urging them forward, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could still shine through. The echoes of their fight would resonate far beyond the confines of war, shaping the destinies of nations and forging the future in ways they could scarcely imagine. The world was changing, and they were at the forefront, ready to face whatever came next, united in purpose and spirit.